The billionaire installed cameras to watch the new worker, expecting nothing unusual. But when he recognized who she really was, his hands began to tremble and everyone in the room froze. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where in the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The cameras are all working, right? Every single one? David Chen adjusted his glasses. Every room, as you asked. Richard King stared at the wall of screens in his office. Each one showed a different part of his empty mansion. On one screen, a woman moved slowly through the grand living room. She was dusting a large glass table. "That's her? Samantha Miller?" Richard asked. "Yes, her references were excellent." "I don't trust excellent references," Richard said. His voice was flat. "I trust what I see. Watch her. If she looks at a vase for too long, I want to know. If she puts a spoon in her pocket, I want to know." "I understand," David said. He stood very still. "Good, you can go." David left the office without a sound. Richard sat down in his large chair. He focused on the screen showing the living room. He watched the new housekeeper clean. Samantha Miller was careful. She moved a small statue to dust under it. She put it back in the exact same spot. She fluffed a pillow and stepped back to look at it. She did not look at the expensive painting on the wall. She did not look at the silver boxes on the shelf. She just cleaned. Richard watched for an hour. He saw nothing wrong. This made him suspicious. "Why are you so careful?" he said to the screen. "What are you hiding?" He switched to another camera. This one showed the kitchen. Samantha was there now. She was washing a cup by hand. It was a simple white cup. She washed it slowly. She dried it with a cloth. She put it away in the cabinet. Richard felt a tightness in his chest. He expected a thief. He expected someone lazy. He did not expect this quiet, careful work. It did not make sense to him. A small sound came from the baby monitor on his desk. It was his daughter, Chloe. She was awake from her nap. Richard pressed a button on his phone. "Nancy," he said to the nanny. "Chloe is awake. Please get her." "Yes, Mr. King," a voice replied. On the kitchen screen, Samantha finished the cup. She looked at the clock on the wall. It was 3 in the afternoon. She picked up her cleaning basket and left the kitchen. Richard followed her on the cameras. She walked down the hallway to the west sunroom. This was a bright room with many windows. Samantha started to clean the windows. A few minutes later, Richard saw movement on a different screen. It was the Nancy walking with Chloe. Chloe was 1 year old. She was learning to walk. She held Nancy's hand, taking small, wobbly steps. "Where are you going?" Richard said to the screen. He did not like changes in the routine. Nancy and Chloe walked toward the west sunroom. The door was open. Nancy let go of Chloe's hand for a moment to fix her own shoe. Chloe took 2 steps alone. Then she saw the open door. She saw the sunny room. She toddled forward through the doorway. "Chloe, wait," Nancy said, but she was too slow. Richard's breath caught. He switched to the sunroom camera. Chloe was now in the room with Samantha. Samantha was kneeling by the window with her cleaning spray. She turned and saw the little girl. She froze. Richard's hand moved toward the phone. He would call Nancy to get Chloe out, but he stopped. He watched. Samantha put down her cloth. She sat back on the floor. She did not move toward Chloe. She just smiled. "Hello," Samantha said softly. "Who are you?" Chloe smiled a big, toothy smile. She took a few more shaky steps toward Samantha. She reached out her small hands. Samantha held out her own hand. Chloe grabbed her finger. Chloe made a happy sound. Then, Chloe looked up at Samantha's face. She saw Samantha's long blonde hair tied in a ponytail. With a quick, curious hand, Chloe grabbed a piece of the hair. Richard leaned forward, his body tense. Samantha did not pull away. She laughed. It was a warm, bright sound that filled the quiet room through the camera's audio. "Oh, you like that?" Samantha said, her voice full of kindness. "It's okay, you can hold it." Chloe giggled and held the hair tighter. Samantha laughed again. She looked at Chloe. Her eyes were soft and shining. They held a look of pure, radiant love. It was a look that said the little girl was the most wonderful thing in the world. In his office, Richard's face turned white. All the blood seemed to leave his body. His hands, which were always so steady, began to shake. He knew that look. He had seen it before, long ago. It was a key turning in a locked door deep inside his mind. a door he never wanted to open. On the screen, Samantha gently pried her hair from Chloe's fist. She smiled at the little girl with a sadness so deep it made Richard's heart stop. Nancy rushed into the room. "I am so sorry," she said to Samantha. "She got away from me." "It's okay," Samantha said, her voice a little thick. She looked down at her cleaning basket. "She is beautiful." Nancy picked Chloe up and carried her away. Samantha stayed on the floor. She picked up her cloth again. But for a long moment, she just stared at the spot where Chloe had been standing. Richard could not move. He stared at the screen. He stared at Samantha's face. The ghost of a memory, 8 years old, began to take shape. A young woman's face, hurt and afraid, looking at him with tears in her eyes. The same eyes. His phone buzzed. It was a text from David. "All quiet?" Richard did not answer. His hands were still shaking. The perfect controlled world on his screens was gone. All he could see was the look on the housekeeper's face. A look that changed everything. Richard did not move from his office chair for a long time. The screens showed empty rooms now, but the image of Samantha's face, looking at Chloe with that specific love, was burned into his mind. It was a key. It unlocked a memory he had buried. He stood up. His legs felt weak. He walked to the window and looked out at his perfect lawn. 8 years. It was 8 years ago. He was not a billionaire then. He had a small tech startup. The office was in a rented space in Palo Alto. The room was messy with computers and paper. A young woman stood in front of his desk. Her name was Samantha Miller. She was an intern. She was holding a printed report. Her hands were shaking. "You did not follow the protocol," Richard said. His voice was cold. "I am sorry, Mr. King. It was a small mistake. The file name was wrong. I fixed it right away," she said. "A small mistake can cost us everything," he said. He did not look at her face. He looked at the report. "This is not acceptable." "Please," she said. Her voice was quiet. "I need this internship. I am learning. I will not do it again." Richard stood up. He wanted to seem strong. He wanted everyone to be afraid of making errors. "No, you are done. You are not good enough for this company. Clean out your desk. Leave now." The young woman's face collapsed. Her eyes, those same eyes, filled with tears. She looked at him with a pain so deep it was like a physical thing in the room. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "Now," Richard said, pointing to the door. She turned and left. He remembered the sound of the door closing softly. He remembered feeling powerful for a moment. Then he forgot about her. He had so many other things to do. Now, in his mansion, Richard's stomach turned. He thought of that young woman's face. He thought of Samantha's face today, looking at Chloe. He turned away from the window. He pressed a button on his desk. "David, come in here, now." 2 minutes later, David entered the office. He closed the door. "Yes, Richard?" Richard did not sit down. He paced. "The new housekeeper, Samantha Miller, her file. I want to see it." David's expression did not change. He opened the tablet he always carried. "I have it here." "Tell me about her. Before this, her work history." David looked at the screen. She worked as a freelance graphic designer for several years. Before that, her records show a gap after college. She is from Portland. "A gap?" Richard stopped pacing. "How long?" "About a year, 8 years ago." Richard's heart beat hard against his ribs. 8 years. "What about personal details? Children?" David looked up. His eyes were calm behind his glasses. "The file does not mention children." "But she gave a child up for adoption," Richard said. The words fell into the quiet room. David was silent for a moment. "That is not in the records I have." Richard walked to the wall of screens. He pointed at the sunroom, now empty. "I saw her. I saw her look at Chloe. It was not the look of a stranger. It was the look of a mother." He turned to David. His face was pale. "She is the intern. The one I fired 8 years ago. Samantha Miller." David adjusted his glasses. A small movement. "Are you certain?" "Yes, I am certain now. She was pregnant. When I threw her out, she was pregnant." Richard's voice broke. "She had the baby, my Chloe. She gave her up for adoption. And I adopted Chloe a year later. I never knew. I never asked." The pieces clicked together in his mind, a terrible, perfect picture. Samantha alone and fired, having a baby, giving her away. Then, years later, taking a job cleaning the house of the man who adopted her daughter. She is not a thief, Richard whispered. She came here to be near her child. He looked at David, searching for an answer. What do I do? She has been in my house for 2 weeks. She has been watching her own daughter clean my floors. Richard felt sick. He had watched her on camera. He had suspected her of stealing silverware. All that time, she was just trying to be close to Chloe. David put the tablet down slowly. What will you do, Richard? I have to talk to her. I have to... Richard did not know. He had never felt this kind of shame. It was a heavy weight on his chest. He had caused so much pain. First to a young woman. Then, without knowing, he had caused more pain by keeping a mother from her child. He thought of Chloe's laugh. He thought of Samantha's laugh in the sunroom. They had the same laugh. I have to fix this, Richard said. But for the first time in his life, he did not know how. Money could not fix this. Power could not fix this. He had broken something, and the pieces were all around him. You have to fix this, David said. His voice was calm. But how? Richard walked to his desk. He put his hands flat on the smooth wood. He looked at them. They were not shaking now. They were still. He felt a cold clarity. I will talk to her, Richard said. I will tell her I know. I will apologize. An apology is just words, David said. I will give her money. A lot of money. For the pain I caused. David did not respond. Richard looked up at him. David's face was unreadable. What? Richard asked. You think it is a bad idea? I think you do not understand what she wants, David said slowly. She did not come here for money. Then what does she want? Richard's voice rose. She wants Chloe. She cannot have her. I am Chloe's father. I adopted her. It is legal. She is her mother, David said. The two men stood in silence. Richard felt the walls of his office closing in. His trusted helper was not giving him answers. He was pointing out problems. David, Richard said. He tried to speak softly. I need your help. You have been with me for years. You know how I think. Help me find a solution. David adjusted his glasses. He took a small breath. There is no solution, Richard. There is only the truth. I just told you the truth, Richard said. No, David said. You told me part of it. There is more. Richard stared at him. What are you talking about? David walked to the window. He looked out, just as Richard had done earlier. You asked me to get her the housekeeper job. Do you remember? Yes, her references were good. You said so. They were perfect, David said. He turned around. His eyes met Richard's. I made them perfect. I created them. Richard's mind went blank. You what? I helped Samantha get this job, David said. Each word was clear and deliberate. I planned it. I put her in this house. Why? The word was a whisper. Because 8 years ago, you broke my sister, David said. The air left the room. Richard heard the words, but they did not make sense. They swirled around him. Asterisk my sister. Your sister? Samantha Miller is my sister, David said. My younger sister. When you fired her, she called me. She was crying. She was pregnant and scared. She had no one else. Richard could not move. He could not speak. I came for her, David continued. I took her home. I held her when she signed the adoption papers. I watched her grieve for a baby she would never know. And I decided I would watch you too. The job, your job here, Richard stammered. I applied to be your assistant to watch you, David said. To see the man who did that to her. To wait. For years I waited. I did my job well. You trusted me. And when you decided to hire a new housekeeper, I saw my chance. I made sure Samantha was the only choice. Richard fell into his chair. The world tilted. The man he trusted with everything. The man who knew his schedule, his secrets, his business. All this time, he was an enemy. You lied to me, Richard said. It was all he could say. Every day, David said. There was no anger in his voice, just fact. For 8 years, my only goal was to give my sister a chance to see her child. That is all. She did not want to hurt you. She just wanted to see Chloe. Richard put his head in his hands. The trap was complete. If he fired Samantha now, he would be the monster again. He would lose David, his most capable employee. He would hurt Chloe, who already smiled at Samantha. If he told Samantha he knew, she might try to take Chloe away legally. She had a brother who had spent 8 years planning against him. They could take his daughter. He was trapped. "What do you want?" Richard asked, his voice hollow. "Revenge?" "No," David said. He sounded tired. "I wanted you to see. I wanted you to look at her and remember what you did. Now you have seen. Now you know. That was the plan." "And now," Richard asked, looking up, "what is the next part of your plan?" David was silent for a long moment. "I do not know," he admitted. "I did not think past this point. I did not think you would figure it out so soon." Richard let out a short, harsh sound. It was almost a laugh. "You are a better planner than that, David. You think of everything." "Not everything," David said. He looked at Richard. "I did not think I would start to respect you. I did not think I would see how lonely you are. That was not part of the plan." The two men looked at each other across the office. The screens on the wall showed empty, silent rooms. The house was a stage, and they were all actors in a play David wrote. "So what do we do?" Richard asked. "That is for you to decide," David said. "You are the one who has to fix what you broke. But you are not fixing it with me anymore. You are fixing it with her brother in the room, and I will not let you hurt her again." David turned and walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the knob. "The cameras are still on," he said, not looking back. "But you are not the only one watching anymore." He opened the door and left. Richard sat alone in the bright, quiet room. He was not a billionaire here. He was just a man who had made a terrible mistake. And now, the consequences were living in his house. The next morning, Richard sat at his desk. He had not slept. David's words played in his head all night. Asterisk. "You are fixing it with her brother in the room." He pressed the intercom. "David, please ask Samantha to come to my office. Now." There was a pause. Then David's voice, perfectly professional. "Yes, Richard." 10 minutes later, there was a soft knock. Samantha stood at the door. She wore her simple housekeeping clothes. Her hands were clasped in front of her. "Come in," Richard said. "Close the door." She did. She did not sit down. She stood near the chair, waiting. "You wanted to see me, Mr. King?" Her voice was quiet. It gave nothing away. Richard cleared his throat. "This was harder than any business deal. Your work has been satisfactory." "Thank you," she said. "I have a new proposal for you," he said. He spoke quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "The housekeeping work is beneath your skills. I looked at your old design portfolio. It is good. I am creating a new position at King's Code, a junior designer. The salary is 3 times what you make now. You will have an office, benefits." Samantha's expression did not change. She just looked at him. "Why? Why?" Richard repeated. "Yes. Why would you do that? You watched me on cameras for 2 weeks. You thought I would steal from you. Now you want to give me a better job." Her blue eyes were steady. "Why?" Richard felt sweat on his neck. He could not say the truth. Asterisk. "Because you are Chloe's mother. Because I feel guilty." He gave the only answer he had. "It is a good business decision. Your talent is wasted here." "I see," Samantha said. But her tone said she did not believe him. "You can start on Monday," Richard said. He pushed a folder across the desk. "The contract is here. You will also have access to the house, to see Chloe. Sometimes. With the nanny present." At the mention of Chloe, Samantha's posture changed. A slight stiffening. "Access?" "Yes, visitation. You can come to the house after your work hours. You can spend time with her." Her eyes searched his face. He could see her mind working. She was trying to understand his game. He was not good at this. He was used to giving orders, not making amends. "This is a very sudden change," she said. "I am a man who makes quick decisions," Richard said. Samantha looked at the contract. She did not pick it up. "And if I say no? If I want to keep cleaning your windows?" Richard's control slipped for a second. "Do not say no. This is a good offer." "For who?" she asked. The question was soft, but sharp. "For you," he said, his voice rising. "For your future." "My future," she repeated. She looked away from him, out the window. She was silent for a long time. Richard waited. "Okay," she said finally. I will take the job. Relief flooded him. Good. That is good. But not for the salary, she said, looking back at him. Her gaze was direct now. I will take it so I can be closer to Chloe. That is the only reason. Her words were a slap. She saw right through him. She knew he was trying to buy her off, to ease his own guilt with money and a fancy title. And she was telling him it would not work. Richard had no answer. He just nodded. Samantha picked up the folder. I will start on Monday. She turned to leave. Samantha, he said. She stopped. I am sorry. For the cameras. She looked at him over her shoulder. The look in her eyes was not warm. It was not the look she gave Chloe. It was the look from 8 years ago, mixed with a new, cold anger. That is not what you are sorry for, she said. Then she walked out. Later that day, Samantha met David in the small garden behind the staff quarters. He was sitting on a bench. He gave me a job at the company, she said, sitting next to him. I know, David said. He told me. He thinks money fixes everything. It is the only language he knows, David said. He looked at his sister. You took it? I took it, Samantha said. Her hands were fists in her lap. It gets me out of this uniform. It gets me into his building. It makes me look stable, a professional, not just a housekeeper. David understood. For the lawyer. Yes, Samantha whispered. A family court judge will look at my job. A junior designer at a big company is better than a housekeeper. He played right into my hands. Sam, David said, his voice gentle. Are you sure? This is a hard road. He had his chance 8 years ago, she said. Her voice was hard. He threw me out like trash. He never looked back. He has my daughter. He does not get to be sorry now. He just gets to lose. She stood up. I have a meeting with the lawyer tomorrow at 4. I am using the advance from his new job to pay for it. She walked back toward the big, lonely house. David watched her go. He had wanted Richard to see the pain he caused. Now Richard had seen it, and the pain was turning into a storm that could sweep them all away. Richard sat in his new office at King's Code, the one next to Samantha's. He could not focus on the screen. He watched the clock. It was 4 in the afternoon. Samantha had left for a doctor's appointment over an hour ago. David walked in with some papers. The Johnson contracts. Where is she? Richard asked, not looking at the papers. Samantha? She used her personal time. She said she had an appointment. What kind of appointment? I did not ask, David said. He placed the contracts on the desk. She is allowed personal time, Richard. Richard stood up. He paced to the window. The parking lot was below. She is not at a doctor. She is planning something. You cannot know that. I can feel it, Richard said, turning back. She took the job. She is quiet. She is too calm. It is like waiting for a storm. David adjusted his glasses. Perhaps she is just doing her job. No. Richard's mind was racing. She wants Chloe. I gave her money and a job, and she looked at me like I offered her a rotten piece of fruit. She wants more. She is going to try to take her. That would be a legal process, David said carefully. A custody case. The words hung in the air. A custody case. Richard felt cold. He had all the money, the big house, the stable life on paper. But she was the mother. A judge might listen. She would need a lawyer, Richard said. His eyes locked on David's. You would know if she had one. David held his gaze. I am your assistant, Richard, not your spy. But Richard saw it. A flicker in David's eyes, a tiny moment of hesitation. He did know. Without another word, Richard grabbed his keys from the desk. Cancel my next meeting. Where are you going? Home. 20 minutes later, Richard stood in the staff wing of his mansion. The housekeeper's room was small and plain. Samantha's few personal items were neat on the dresser. A hairbrush, a small picture of an older couple, her parents. He felt a pang of guilt for being there, but fear pushed him forward. Her bag was on the chair, a simple canvas tote. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were the usual things: a wallet, keys, a phone, and a manila folder. He pulled it out. The words on the top page were clear. Petition for custody. His vision blurred for a second. He forced himself to read. It was all there. Her name as the biological mother. His name as the adoptive father. A request for full legal and physical custody of Chloe King. A list of reasons. His unstable and controlling behavior. the hidden cameras, her history of being fired by him while pregnant. The papers fell from his hands, scattering on the floor. Panic, sharp and electric, shot through him. She was not just angry, she was going to war, and she had a good case. The front door opened and closed downstairs. Light footsteps. Samantha was back. Richard scrambled to pick up the papers. He shoved them back into the folder and into the bag. He was out of the room and down the hall when he saw her coming up the stairs. She stopped when she saw him. Her eyes went from his face to the door of her room behind him. Understanding hardened her features. "What were you doing?" Her voice was flat. "I know," Richard said. The words tumbled out. "I saw the papers. You are suing me for custody." Samantha did not deny it. She walked past him to her room. She looked inside, saw her bag moved. She turned back to him. "So now you know." "You cannot do this," he said, following her. "You cannot just take her." "I am not taking her. I am asking a court to give me my daughter," she said. She was calm, too calm. "You had her for a year. I never had a single day. I can fight this. I have the best lawyers." "I know you do," she said. "But I have the truth, and I am her mother." Desperate, Richard moved between her and the door. His mind searched for a solution, a deal, a transaction. It was the only way he knew. "Do not do this," he pleaded. "Stop the case. Move into the main house, the big house. Live there. Be with Chloe every day. Be her mother. I will give you your own wing. Anything you want. Just do not take her from me." Samantha stared at him. For a second he saw it. A flicker of pain, of want. The dream he was offering, to live with her child. But it passed. "You still do not understand," she said quietly. "You think this is a business deal. You think you can offer me a room in your house like it is a prize. I do not want a wing. I do not want your money. I want my daughter, and I do not trust you." She picked up her bag. "My lawyer filed the papers this afternoon. You will be served tomorrow." She walked past him and down the hall. Richard stood alone, the walls of his perfect, empty mansion closing in. The battle was no longer silent. It was real. It was legal. And he was terrified he would lose. The legal papers arrived the next morning. A man in a suit handed them to Richard at his front door. Richard took the thick envelope. His hands felt numb. He went to his office. He called his lawyer. He yelled. He demanded to know how to win. His lawyer, a calm man named Ben, said, "We will fight, Richard, but a family court judge looks at more than bank accounts. They look at who the child bonds with. They look at who is the primary caregiver." Richard hung up the phone. He was not the primary caregiver. The nanny was. And now Samantha was there too, with her warm laugh and easy hugs. He left the office and walked to the playroom. The door was open a little. He could hear sounds inside. Chloe was on the soft rug. Samantha sat with her. They were stacking bright-colored blocks. Chloe would put one block on top. Samantha would clap. Chloe giggled. Richard watched from the hallway. He saw how Chloe looked at Samantha. It was a look of pure joy. She never looked at him that way. She loved him, but it was different. He was the tall man who picked her up sometimes. Samantha was the sun in her sky. Samantha looked up and saw him. Her smile faded. She went back to playing with Chloe, but the ease was gone. Richard walked away. His chest ached. That evening, he found David in the kitchen. David was making tea. "I need help," Richard said. The words felt strange in his mouth. David turned. "With the case? Your lawyer?" "No," Richard interrupted. "Not with the case. With Chloe." David stopped. He put the kettle down. "What do you mean?" "I do not know how to be with her," Richard admitted. He looked at the floor. "I buy her things. I provide a safe house, but I do not know how to play. I do not know how to make her look at me the way she looks at Samantha." David was quiet for a moment. "She looks at Samantha that way because Samantha gets on the floor. She does not think about anything else when she is with Chloe. She is just there." "How do I do that?" Richard asked. He sounded lost. "You stop thinking about your next meeting. You stop thinking about being Richard King. You just sit with your daughter." "She likes the yellow blocks," Richard said suddenly. "Yes, she does. I ordered more, the best ones, from Germany. They arrived yesterday." David almost smiled. It was a small, sad smile. That is a start, Richard. But she does not need the best blocks from Germany. She needs you to sit and help her stack the ones she has. The next day, Richard came home early. He told the nanny to take the afternoon off. He went to the playroom. Chloe was there with her blocks. She looked up when he came in. Dada. Hello, Chloe, he said. His voice was too formal. He cleared his throat. He sat down on the rug. It was far from her. He felt huge and clumsy. Chloe pushed a block toward him. Bach, she said. Block, Richard corrected softly. Then he winced. He was not supposed to correct her. He was supposed to play. He picked up the block. It was yellow. He put it on top of another block. Chloe watched. He put another one on. The tower got taller. Chloe's eyes got bigger. Then, with a squeal, she knocked the tower over. The blocks scattered. Richard froze. Was he supposed to be upset? Was this wrong? Chloe laughed a big belly laugh. She looked at him, waiting. Slowly, Richard gathered the blocks. He started to build again. This time, Chloe put a block on too. Her small hand was clumsy. The tower wobbled. Uh-oh, Richard said. Chloe giggled. Uh-oh. They built it again. She knocked it down again. They did it 3 more times. Each time, Richard's movements got a little easier. Each time, his smile felt a little more real. He was not thinking about the court papers. He was not thinking about Samantha or David. He was just watching his daughter's face, full of delight at a simple falling tower. When the nanny returned an hour later, she found them both on the floor, surrounded by blocks. Richard's expensive shirt was wrinkled. Chloe was leaning against his side, babbling a story he did not understand. He looked up at the nanny. He saw the surprise on her face. "We were just building," Richard said. It was the most honest thing he had said in a long time. David watched Richard play with Chloe for the next few days. He saw the change. It was small, but real. Richard came home earlier. He sat on the floor more. He laughed less like a boss and more like a father. On Thursday, David spoke to Richard in his office. "You should have dinner together, all of you." Richard looked up from his desk. "Who?" "You, Samantha, Chloe." Richard's face closed off. "No, that is not a good idea. It will be tense. It will be awful." "It is necessary," David said calmly. "The court date is next week. The judge will want to know if you can be in the same room, if you can be parents together. You need to practice." Richard hesitated. He knew David was right. She will say no. "Ask her," David said. Richard found Samantha in her new office at King's Code. She was working on a design. She looked up, her expression guarded. "David thinks we should have dinner," Richard said. He did not know how to be casual. "You, me, and Chloe, tonight, at the house." Samantha's first reaction was to say no. He saw it in her eyes. Then she looked down at her desk, at a small digital photo frame David had given her. It showed a picture of Chloe, smiling. "Just dinner?" she asked. "Just dinner," Richard said. 7 o'clock. Samantha nodded once. "Okay." That evening at 7, the table in the formal dining room was set for 3. A high chair for Chloe sat at the end. The room was too big, too quiet. Samantha came in wearing simple jeans and a sweater. She did not look at Richard. She went straight to Chloe's high chair and helped the nanny buckle her in. "Thank you, Nancy. I will take it from here," Richard said to the nanny. Nancy left. They sat, Richard at the head, Samantha to his right, Chloe at the end between them. A staff member brought in food, salad, chicken, simple things. No one spoke. The only sounds were the clink of forks and Chloe's happy babbling as she mashed peas on her tray. It was the most tense meal Richard had ever endured. Chloe held up a piece of carrot. "Mama," she said, looking at Samantha. Samantha's breath caught. She gave a small, watery smile. "Yes, that's a carrot." Chloe then turned and held the carrot toward Richard. "Dada!" Richard's heart squeezed. He took the mushy carrot piece. "Thank you, Chloe." For a moment, the silence felt different, softer. "She calls you Mama," Richard said quietly. He did not look at Samantha. Samantha stared at her plate. "She hears the nanny call me Miss Samantha. She made it shorter. She doesn't know what it means." "But you do," Richard said. Samantha put her fork down. She finally looked at him. "Yes, I do." The air was thick again. Chloe, feeling the tension, let out a small whimper. "It's okay, sweetheart," Samantha said instantly, her voice softening. She wiped Chloe's face with a napkin. It's all okay. Richard watched her gentle hands. He remembered the cold words he had said to her 8 years ago, the words that took this moment away from her. After I fired you, he began, his voice rough. What happened? Samantha froze. She did not want to tell him. She wanted him to live with not knowing, but the pain was too big. It spilled out. I cried in my car for an hour, she said, her eyes on Chloe. Then I called David. I took 3 pregnancy tests that week. They were all positive. I was so scared. I had no job, no insurance. The father was a boy who said he was not ready. Richard listened. He did not move. David came and got me. He took me to Portland. I got big. I felt her kick. A tear fell onto Samantha's cheek. She did not wipe it away. I wanted to keep her, but I had nothing. No money. No way to give her a good life. So I signed the papers. I thought it was the only way to love her. She looked at Richard then, her eyes blazing with grief. And you had everything. You just went and bought a baby, like she was another thing for your big, empty house. Richard had no defense. Her eyes blazing with grief. And you had everything. You just went and bought a baby, like she was another thing for your big, empty house. Richard had no defense. I did not know. You never asked, Samantha's voice broke. Did you ever once ask about her mother, who she was, why she gave her up? Richard's shame was complete. He looked at his hands. No, I did not ask. I just wanted a child. I thought it would fix the loneliness. I was wrong. The truth sat between them, ugly and real. Chloe, full and tired, began to fuss. Samantha stood up automatically. She lifted Chloe from the high chair, holding her close. Chloe rested her head on Samantha's shoulder. I will take her up, Samantha said, her voice tired. Samantha, Richard said. He stood too. I was wrong, then, and I am sorry. It is the smallest word in the world for what I did, but I am so sorry. Samantha stopped. She did not turn around. She just held her daughter closer and walked out of the room. Richard sat back down at the empty, messy table. The dinner was a disaster, and it was the most honest conversation they had ever had. The morning of the court date was gray and cool. Richard, Samantha, and David rode in the same car to the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. No one spoke. Richard looked out the window. Them in the hallway. Ben, Richard's lawyer, was an older man in a very expensive suit. Teresa, Samantha's lawyer, was a younger woman with a sharp, kind face. Them in the hallway. Ben, Richard's lawyer, was an older man in a very expensive suit. Teresa, Samantha's lawyer, was a younger woman with a sharp, kind face. Remember, Ben said to Richard, talk about your home, your stability, your bond. Teresa touched Samantha's arm. Just tell your story. Tell the truth. They entered the courtroom. It was smaller than Richard expected. The judge was a woman with silver hair. She looked at them over her glasses. The hearing began. Remember, Ben said to Richard, talk about your home, your stability, your bond. Teresa touched Samantha's arm. Just tell your story. Tell the truth. They entered the courtroom. It was smaller than Richard expected. The judge was a woman with silver hair. She looked at them over her glasses. The hearing began. The judge asked Richard many questions. She asked about his work hours. She asked about Chloe's daily routine. And who cares for Chloe during the day? The judge asked. Her nanny, Nancy, Richard said. Then he added, and Samantha, her mother. She is there after work and on weekends. They play together. The judge made a note. The judge asked Richard many questions. She asked about his work hours. She asked about Chloe's daily routine. And who cares for Chloe during the day? The judge asked. Why do you believe you should remain the primary custodian of Chloe, Mr. King? Richard took a deep breath. He had practiced a speech about his resources, his safe. Her nanny, Nancy, Richard said. Then he added, and Samantha, her mother. She is there after work and on weekends. They play together. The judge made a note. Neighborhood, his schools. But the words would not come. He thought of the blocks on the floor. He thought of Chloe's head on his shoulder. Why do you believe you should remain the primary custodian of Chloe, Mr. King? Richard took a deep breath. He had practiced a speech about his resources, his safe neighborhood, his schools. But the words would not come. He thought of the blocks on the floor. He thought of Chloe's head on his shoulder. Still am. She paused, collecting herself. But he is right about one thing. Chloe needs us both. He is a good father. He is trying. I see it. I did not want to see it, but I do. I do not want to take her from him. I want to be with her. And I want her to be with him too. Richard stared at her. His eyes were wide. David let out a slow breath. The judge looked between them. This is not a typical case, she said. It is clear the child is loved. It is clear there has been great harm, but also recent effort. She closed her folder. I am not ready to make a decision today. I need to order a home evaluation. A social worker will visit each potential home environment. I will also order family counseling for all three of you. My goal is not to punish. My goal is to find a solution that serves Chloe King. We will reconvene in 1 month. She struck her gavel. The sound was final. In the hallway, the two groups stood apart. Teresa spoke softly to Samantha. Ben talked to Richard. Richard broke away from his lawyer. He walked toward Samantha. She saw him coming and turned to face him. Thank you, Richard said. The words were inadequate. For what you said in there. I did not say it for you, Samantha said. But her tone was not harsh. It was tired. I said it for Chloe. She loves you. What happens now? He asked. Now, Samantha said, looking at the floor. We wait for... But her tone was not harsh. It was tired. I said it for Chloe. She loves you. What happens now? He asked. Now, Samantha said, looking at the floor. We wait for a stranger to come and judge our homes. And we go to counseling. She walked away with her lawyer. David stayed behind for a moment. He looked at Richard. That was the right thing, David said. What you said in there, and what she said, it was the first step. Toward what? Richard asked, feeling lost. Toward something real, David said. He then followed his sister, leaving Richard alone in the buzzing hallway of the courthouse. The future still unknown, but for the first time, not a battle. It was a waiting game, and they were all playing on the same side now, Chloe's side. 1 month later, they sat in the same courtroom. The judge had the report from the social worker. She had the notes from their family counselor. This has been a difficult situation, the judge began. But it is clear all parties are now focused on this parade. The child, Chloe, is thriving in the care of both. She adjusted her glasses. Therefore, I am ordering a shared custody arrangement. Legal custody will be joint. Physical custody will be primary with Mr. King, given the established home. However, Miss Miller will have extensive and liberal visitation. Richard's heart sank. Visitation. Samantha would still leave, the judge continued. To facilitate a true bond and for the stability of the child, I am ordering that Miss Miller reside in the primary home. She will have her own private space within the mansion. You will continue counseling. You will create a parenting plan together. This is a trial period of 6 months. After that, we will review. Richard looked at Samantha. Her eyes were wide. She was not being given Chloe, but she was being given a home with her. Do you both understand? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor, they said together. The first night of the new arrangement was strange. Samantha's things were moved from the staff wing to a suite of rooms on the same floor as Chloe's nursery. It was beautiful and big and did not feel like hers. At 7 o'clock, they met in the kitchen. David was there, acting as a buffer. I made a schedule, David said, placing a paper on the island counter. For Chloe, her meals, her naps, her playtime. You can both see it. You can both add to it. Samantha looked at the schedule. Who puts her to bed tonight? You can, Richard said quickly. If you want. Samantha nodded. Okay. Later, Samantha gave Chloe a bath in the big tub. She read her a story in the rocking chair. Chloe, clean and warm in her pajamas, curled into Samantha's chest. Good night, my sweet girl, Samantha whispered into her hair. Mama is right down the hall. She placed Chloe in the crib. Chloe sighed and closed her eyes, holding her stuffed rabbit. Samantha stood there for a long time, just watching her daughter sleep in the beautiful, familiar room. Her room. She was really here. She turned off the light and opened the door. Richard was standing in the hallway. He had been waiting. Is she asleep? He asked softly. Yes, Samantha said. She pulled the door closed until it was just open a crack. They stood in the quiet, dim hallway. They were not boss and employee. They were not enemy. Yes, Samantha said. She pulled the door closed until it was just open a crack. They stood in the quiet, dim hallway. They were not boss and employee. They were not enemies in a lawsuit. They were two parents outside their child's door. "This is strange," Richard said. "Yes," Samantha agreed. "Thank you," he said, "for staying." "I am not staying for you," she said. But again, the words had no heat. "I know," Richard said. He looked tired. "The schedule David made, is 8 in the morning okay for her breakfast?" "8 is fine," Samantha said. "She likes blueberries with her oatmeal." "I will tell the cook," Richard said.